Friends, March is a crazy month of fishing. For one thing, you just don't know what the weather's going to do, and for two, when it gets churned up, you get some seaweed and it is a bear. But I'm going to show you a little trick, she's doing it right now, that'll help you go from catching, well, check out this, to that. All right, let's go fishing. All right, like March weather is really weird. 2 days ago, I was catching puffer no problem, no seaweed or anything. I was filling up my bucket. Matter of fact, my Tennessee friends came down and they were fishing. Here's Kayla. She caught this beautiful black drum. That's got to be at least 16 inches right there. I actually asked her what the rig she was using. She had these cool rigs with little floaters on them. I looked in the store for them around here and I couldn't find them. She said the only place you can get them is online. So I got to go online and try to catch them. But then the water started to churn up. You can always tell when the water's churning up when the jellyfish start landing on the beach. This is a cannonball jellyfish. They're not harmful to humans, so you don't really got to worry about it. Now here's Nigel. He's the guy I was talking about from Tennessee. He's trying to reel in a fish. He's not reeling in a fish. He's reeling in a big lump of seaweed. Not that the fish weren't biting. You can see right here we got some whiting. These are pretty small. They're going back. But look at the seaweed. It's huge. I mean, if I was catching seaweed, I'd be doing really great. I mean, here goes. Look at this species right here. It's a beautiful piece of a specimen of some seaweed. And not only is it a bear to reel it in, but once you have it reeled in, it's totally tangled up in your line. And you got to spend time picking it off, like 15 minutes. All right, I'm exaggerating. Like a half an hour just picking off the seaweed off the line because it's impossible to get it off. And it's so frustrating because it gets along the top of the rod here and you can't reel it in. It's tangling up the line. You can't cast it out, that's for sure. So you got to get it all off. You're just sitting there picking it off. This is valuable time like you could be fishing instead of bringing in these huge clumps of seaweed. And you just can't fish in these conditions. It's just totally frustrating. And then I started thinking about it and I'm like, why am I getting these huge strips of seaweed on the line? And I'm like, you know what? I think it's all happening right here in the where it's churned up in the surf. And I felt like, once I cast out beyond that, it's not getting on the line, but as I reel it in, it's all wrapped around that part that was laying in the surf. So I was like, what if I just waded out into the water and I cast it out right there, and I'm going to have to take a couple of waves, right? But what if I just stayed there and I just held the rod up really high? And this way the line wouldn't be in the surf, in the immediate surf where all the churn is, where it's crashing, the waves are crashing. It would be just beyond that, and the fish could be down there and they could be biting, and I wouldn't get the seaweed. And so I did it. I held up my rod like that. I was standing, and I have waders on, so the water is kind of cold, 60 degrees, so that helped. But it was only minutes, and I had my first bite. And I started reeling it in, and I'm like, it doesn't feel heavy like seaweed. It feels heavy like a fish. I can feel the tug, tug, tug. And I was right. I got a whiting, and not a bad size whiting. And look at the little bit of seaweed. Yeah, sure, there's a little bit wrapped around the bottom, but that's nothing compared to what it was before. I'm very, very happy with that. And so that was it. That was the trick. So I waited out there again. I casted it out. I kept my line up, and boom, right away I got another whiting. And I'm telling you what, in a half an hour I filled up my bucket, and I didn't have seaweed, and I wasn't frustrated. So that's the way to go. If you got some waders, wade out there, get past the churn, and you're going to catch yourself some fish. That's the way it is. Let's go fishing.